Now, this week, world leaders are gathering at the UN in New York, where they'll discuss the situation in the Middle East. At the same time, in Gaza, the death toll continues to rise and is now over 65,000, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. And yet, the Israeli army has launched a new offensive into Gaza City. Now, the red on this map shows areas where the IDF has designated combat zones. And in yellow, these bits here, areas under new evacuation orders. Together, they make up 86% of the territory. And despite this, hundreds of thousands remain. Back at the UN, countries continue to recognise Palestinian statehood, and we expect over 150 to have done so by the end of the week. That's 78% of UN members. In the UK, this symbolic move is supported by the biggest group of voters, with 44% here agreeing that it's the right step. But people are sceptical about whether it will actually bring an end to the conflict. 41% think that it won't make any difference at all. Robert.
Thank you so much, Pippa. Now, I'm delighted to be joined by Aaron David Miller, former senior State Department official. Aaron, 4 out of 5 of the permanent members of the UN Security Council now recognise a Palestinian state. Do you think that brings the prospect of such a state any nearer?
No. Recognition, no recognition. I mean, should the Israelis and the Americans obviously join the international consensus, you would be in business. You'd actually have what I've worked on for better part of a quarter of a century. You'd actually have a real negotiating process or a peace process, but you don't have any of that. And we're now nearing the beginnings of the 3rd year of this war. And I must say, the question that puzzles me is this. The 3 power centers in the world today, key European states, 3 of whom the Israelis value, presumably, the Brits, the French, and the Germans, key Arab states in the Gulf, and Washington. None of these actors over the last almost 2 years now have sought to impose a single cost or consequence that normal humans would regard as sustained or serious pressure on either of the combatants, especially the Israelis. And I think if you asked me why we are in the beginning of the 3rd year of this war and why the prospects of Palestinian statehood is nowhere to be seen, it's one fundamental problem. We lack leaders in Israel who are masters of their politics, not prisoners of them, leaders to lead a now dysfunctional Palestinian national movement that's now split between Hamas on one hand and Abbas on the other, and a leader in Washington who looks at something for the half a dozen administrations I worked for, Jimmy Carter to Bush 43, regarded as a coherent vision or version of the American national interest. So no, 2 states recognition is a policy tethered to a galaxy far, far, far away, rather than the realities back here on planet Earth.
Now, that's pretty demoralising. Can you at least sketch out what a practical route map might look like? Or in a Trump-Netanyahu world, is that just an impossibility?
Right now, over the course of the last 9 months, Donald Trump has, in some respects, followed the course of other American presidents who do not seek out, for any number of reasons, confrontations with Israeli prime ministers. In the case of Donald Trump, though, a pattern is emerging. He wants to end the war in Ukraine, he wants to end the fighting in Ukraine, but not the war. In Gaza, he wants the hostages out and he wants Hamas eliminated. But so far, he has failed to invest much political currency in any sort of rational day-after strategy. And then, of course, you have Benjamin Netanyahu presiding over the most right-wing government in the history of the State of Israel, on trial for bribery, fraud, breach of trust in a Jerusalem district court, almost 5 years running. He needs to maintain himself in power, and right now, over a government, as I pointed out, that is clearly the most extremist since the creation of the State of Israel. So no, unless there is a fundamental change in Trump's view, which could somehow bring about a moderation in Netanyahu's, I think that this war is going to go on.
Aaron, you're depressing me, but it is gripping, so please don't go away. There's lots more I need to ask you. So we'll be back in just a minute or two. Welcome back. I'm delighted that Aaron is still with me. Aaron, whenever the Israeli ministers or their spokespeople are asked about annexation of the West Bank, they refuse at the moment to rule it out. How likely is it, you think, that they will move within coming weeks to do that?
A great question, Robert. You know, if we're talking about a partial annexation or even full annexation, I suspect even this Israeli government that takes American support far too often for granted would want at a minimum, a flashing green light from the Trump administration. The problem is that even without a formal move to annex, what you've seen over the course of the last, well, since this government was formed in December of 2022, and the average length of an Israeli government since independence is 1.9 years. So this government may actually go to term, which would be next fall, which is hard to believe, given some of its policies. But I think what you're watching on the ground in the West Bank is, frankly, de facto annexation in everything but name. And you have Bezalel Smotrich, who is literally the minister in charge, along with the Israeli Defense Forces. He has done everything he can to civilianize much of the mechanisms of control and to create an environment in which Israeli settlers, I think, have a margin to wreak havoc, even terror, on Palestinians. So even without a formal declaration, I hate to depress you, Robert. I mean, these interviews depress me as well, but I ascribe to Groucho Marx. He once said, "Who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes?" I see what I see, and I haven't given up hope. It's just we do need leaders, Robert, and we do not have them.
No, I that seems very clear. And therefore, on an aspect of that, last week I asked Donald Trump a question at the press conference that he gave here at Chequers in the UK, and I asked him when would he put pressure, as the only man in the world who can do this, on Netanyahu to stop the destruction of Gaza, to end the starvation, to stop the killing of civilians. And he said, not until the hostages have been released. So I then followed up and I said, well, when they're released, will you then tell Netanyahu to stop what he's doing? And he refused to give that commitment. So the question that was left hanging there is, will Trump never stop Netanyahu?
Well, never is a long time. I got kids and grandkids. I don't like to say never even about Israeli-Palestinian peace because we can't see what's in front of us, and we don't have the right to mortgage our grandchildren's future by saying never. I mean, no one ever believed apartheid would end the way it did. So I think, though, in Trump's case, I've learned one thing working for half a dozen secretaries of state, both political parties, having voted for Republicans and Democrats and worked for them. Robert, governing is about choosing. It's about determining what's important to you. And 9 months in, I would say, no matter what the rhetoric from the Trump administration, they have not made ending the war in Gaza and what might come later, building a bridge to try to do something about solving, or at least creating conditions to resolve, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. People care about what they own. And I think in this respect, Donald Trump has chosen, for any number of reasons, really not to own this particular issue.
Aaron, look, thank you so much for joining us. It was depressing, but it was also enlightening. And we hope you'll come back again soon. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Be sure to like, subscribe and turn on all post notifications to catch the ills, spills and thrills of the mad, mad world of politics.